So, laying the finance infrastructure for agro-industrialization. I know that this had already come up in the previous sessions, so I know it's a big area of interest for very many of us in the room. I'd like to introduce the person going to chair this session. He's a partner with BID Capital Partners, Mark Mutahi. Please take the chair's seat. Joining him will be a man we have seen here before from UNCDF, Head of Office in Uganda, Dmitry, Head of Fund Management at ABI Finance Limited, Joseph Kibuuka, the Director of Pearl Rice and also Resident Director of International University of East Africa, Mr. Hassan Alwi, and Mr. Peter Rasmussen, who is the Principal Country Economist, Uganda Africa Development Bank. Those are our roundtable participants today. Mark, over to you.
Thank you, Marcus. Yes, we'll let everybody take their seats. Thank you again. So, welcome to our last session after lunch. Hopefully, in the interest of time, we'll keep this to about an hour. The way I hope to run it is after this, we shall do Q&A. So if you have any questions, please save them till the end. If you have a burning question, though, you can feel free to interrupt. If it's really killing you, you can feel free to interrupt, and I'll be able to take that. So yeah, my panel has been introduced, so thank you, gentlemen. I'm surprised we don't have an all-male panel again. So I'll say that in the interest of the people who are thinking it. But either way, we shall move forward. So we've had a lot of discussion this morning about agro-industrialization, what needs to happen, what's not happening. The panel in the morning was speaking about why it's important. I think to crown this out, what's important is what do we need to do. What exactly should we do from going forward? The session by Paul Turner from the World Bank, I actually liked his session because he was very specific to, as the World Bank, this is what we see and this is what we're doing. So to my panelists, I have a commitment I ask of you, which is number one, let's hope that when we finish this, everybody has a full understanding of what needs to be done. There's been a lot of discussion about agrofinancing in Uganda, East Africa. We all know the statistics. We all know the challenges. Let's try and move to solutions. So number one, what needs to be done? That's the question I'll ask of everybody at the end, very specifically. Number two, what are you and your organization going to do? So let's walk away with a few commitments. What exactly are you going to do as an organization? What do you commit to, so at least all the people that are listening to us can take that commitment from us, and next time the Mkutano gets us to convene, we'll start off from there. Okay? Thanks again, gentlemen. So to start off, we know the issues, we know the problems, we know, but something is broken. Something is broken. We've had so many people speaking, not only today, for many, cabinet is speaking, development partners are talking, financiers are speaking, banks are speaking, but something is not working. Now, interestingly, we have an industrialist here himself, Hassan, who's going to share with us some of his experience. But before we get to that, I'll come to you, Dmitry, from the side of UNCDF. We know you've done a lot of things as an organization to try and support that agro-industrialization agenda in Uganda, things around digital finance. There's a lot of work that UNCDF has done that have been very successful at. But specific to our discussion today, I'm curious to know, what have been the gains thus far, specific to agro-industrialization, and what challenges do you see as you proceed? Over to you.
Yeah, thank you so much. So let me talk briefly about UNCDF experiences, particularly with the facility that we have been running for the past 4 years. Many of you, I assume, have heard about that facility. It is called START, Support to Agricultural Revitalization and Transformation, and this is a blended finance facility. The specific, by the way, the manager of this facility, I hope I saw him here in the morning. Not sure if he's still around, but if he's around, wanted him to rise for recognition. Anyway, the specific feature of this facility is that it targets value addition. It is not focusing on primary production as such, but on the investments that contribute to the subsequent stages of value addition, having in mind in particular small and medium enterprises. And this brings me back to a discussion that I heard this morning. Someone saying that it makes no sense to talk about a factory with a capacity of 10,000 metric tons if farmers produce only 2,000 metric tons. And our reasoning when we focused on the higher stages of value addition was that without a factory, you simply cannot expect those farmers to increase their production from 2,000 to 10,000. Of course, just constructing a factory does not mean that this happens, but without a factory, it will not happen for sure. So to unlock the potential of primary production, you also need to have in place the industrial component of the agricultural sector in place. What we have discovered, and I'm sure my colleagues from ABI Finance share the same experiences, is the need for substantive technical assistance in project development, project preparation, and project structuring. It is this area that significantly impacts the access of particularly small and medium agribusinesses to affordable finance. It is not so much finance per se. You know, very often you can hear that people don't have enough money, they cannot get access to finance. Finance is, in our experience, quite available, provided that you have a quality proposal that meets the industry standards. But given that most of entrepreneurs in Uganda, particularly from small and medium enterprises, are very unsophisticated. And as we all know, the business management practices and the governance structures leaves one to desire a lot. They cannot get to that level where they can present their projects as bankable. It does not mean that they are inherently unbankable. It simply means they cannot present them as bankable. And addressing that particular area is a huge step towards facilitating their access to finance.
Thank you. Dmitry, I want to build on that question, which is, you say one of the challenges is we don't have bankable projects in the context of the technical support to write them the right way. Do you think there's an opportunity for us to contextualize those requirements? Your point was they don't meet quality standards or financing standards. But we do know there are businesses here which work, right? We see them every day, we interface with them every day. Is there the opportunity? And I'm using an example from somebody I know who applied to the ACF at Bank of Uganda, and they're extremely frustrated with the requirements. But meanwhile, if you went on the ground and saw their business, the business is working. Now, should we be working with the entrepreneur to meet BOU standards, or should BOU relax their standards to meet the entrepreneur, or is the solution halfway, from your view?
Well, I think it's not either or. You need to address both sides of this challenge. Again, in our experience, once you start, I have prepared some slides, but I'm not going to show them, that summarizes three main solutions to better access to finance for agro-industrialization. And the first solution is that the financial institution needs to develop a better understanding of the agricultural sector and agro-industrialization. This intimate, I would say, expertise is often not there. Financial institutions, banks, and others approach projects in agro-industrialization like any other project, like real estate, for example, or like a project in manufacturing, without really making that targeted and selective deliberation about the risks and returns of the project. Once that understanding develops, the financial institution may also relax its requirements. This may also happen. And as the capacity of the project developers and the quality of the projects improves, this becomes even likelier. To give an example with the AfDB, the Uganda Development Bank, which is our partner in the START facility, we have managed through this process to reduce the collateral requirement by 50%, for example, or to accept certificates of customary ownership as part of the collateral requirement, or consider the equipment, which is part of the project, also as part of collateral. So it is not just relaxing the requirements as such, but also understanding how various components of agribusinesses or agro-industrialization projects can serve as to create additional security in the context of the project and to create confidence with the financial institution that the financing will be properly serviced.
Thank you. I think that information is not getting out there in terms of the difference in requirements, because when you sit in such forum, people love to hate on the banks and say they're too tough and all this. So maybe people don't know, potential seekers of finance don't know. Joseph, I'll jump to you. ABI has been very instrumental in sort of transforming the agribusiness space and supporting them. So there's a lot of innovations clearly you've come up with, some of which maybe he has talked about, but would like to hear some more from you on how you've sort of worked around this problem to the extent that you're able to provide financing and support organizations that otherwise would not be touched by others, and how you've been able to make that successful.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Chair. To begin with, I want to give a little bit of background on what ABI Finance does in the financing to try and solve the financing gap. A lot of times, I'm speaking about the conventions that we have. We realize that there's a financing gap, and it is true. There are challenges for smallholders, especially smallholder farmers. Even, by the way, the middle and large agribusinesses have challenges accessing finance. So there's a gap. A lot of times in Uganda, you find that the available facilities are short-term in nature. Why? The financial institutions that provide them are risk-averse. They think that 2 years, 3 years is enough time for them to manage the risk within. So that creates a mismatch in the financing industry. Why? Agro-industrialization does not need short-term financing. You realize that most of the industries or entrepreneurs in that space want long-term patient capital, which the financial institutions currently do not provide. If they do, you must actually go through a sieve and another sieve to be able to get financing in there. Now, what ABI does or did at that time is to realize that if there's this gap, how do we plug it? One of those ones was, again, ABI Finance is not licensed to do retail lending. So through Apex bodies and financial institutions, we extend credit for own lending to the particular value chain that we want to unlock. And one of those is long-term financing. That is basically looking at least 5 years and 10 years to do CAPEX financing and try and bridge that gap. Yes, because the financing goes through financial institutions and other financial services providers, there is a criteria they have to go through, even because that one, between ABI Finance and the financial institution, we can't influence. The credit process is the credit process. However, we have a bit of assurance that because that money is allocated for that particular product, it should be going to unlock that blocked pipe there. We see a lot, even if I can speak about the smallholder farmers. The smallholder farmers, who are mostly our target, a lot of them are affected from the start. They have a problem from the start. Which is that problem? The land tenure system in Uganda does not support. There are 10 children who belong to this father who is deceased, and all of them had to share 1 acre of land. Which 1 acre of land is Chibanja. Chibanja is not titled land. And no financial institution can lend against that small piece of land, because the recovery of their facility will be the hardest to do. So already they are hindered from the start. So financial institutions don't see them as any area that they can actually go to. Now, realizing that, ABI Finance comes and says, okay, there's a risk for you financial institutions going as far as lending to this Chibanja holder, because it doesn't have sufficient collateral. So, because there's a risk, what would you want us to do to de-risk that area? And here comes the product of the guarantee. If we can cover you 50%, 70%, can you make a few strides to that area? Oh yes, and we then agree, and then we provide that guarantee to make sure that we de-risk that area of smallholder farmers who would initially not access financing, but with the cover that we provide, then financing can be availed. Along the time we've been doing this, we have actually realized, and if bankers are here, they can correct me if I'm wrong, that the perceived risk of NPLs within that area before you start is so high, and what happens in reality is that these smallholder farmers actually pay. If you provide for 50% of your portfolio going bad because you're lending to this risky segment of people, eventually turns out that these smallholder farmers pay. Because, first of all, they're within a society where each one of them is known, and failure for them to pay means that everyone in society will know that so-and-so is being taken under because of failure. So it even kind of touches the pride of people. So they actually pay. So along the way, we realize that product works, and the risk that is perceived to be there is actually not that high. So we are happy that segment of smallholder farmers is unlocked. Then, again, riding with the fact that you cannot, again, to speak to what Mr. Dmitry said, you cannot only have industries and not have the suppliers to those industries. When you're looking at finance, you cannot provide long-term financing to do capex and then leave the gap for short-term, because an industry will be built, but because they don't have short-term working capital to buy input into the industry, again, there will be a mismatch there. So a blend of long-term and short-term is required. So how do you do that? You provide products that solve the problem of long-term, at the same time providing a product that solves the problem of short-term, such that this industrialist will have his capital expenditures in place, build his factory, but still can access some financing to buy produce that will go through the factory. Otherwise, if you solve one side and the other side is limping, the aim is actually not going to be achieved. I agree with you, Dmitry, for your submission 100%.
Okay, let's take it up. Thank you so much. We'll take it up to a macro level, Peter, which is, in the morning, I think it was Dmitry who shared with us a very depressing slide that said we are the least productive of our peers. Ghana, Kenya, Rwanda, everyone around us. Then Marcus made it worse and said we have half of the arable land in the region is here, but we're the least productive. At a macro level, from where you sit, what are we doing wrong, Dmitry? Clearly we're doing, sorry, Peter, we're doing something wrong. What are we doing wrong? Let's just get to it and hopefully get a solution.
Am I on now, or yeah, is it on? Or
Yes.
okay, there
Yes.
it is. Well, that's a very big question, I think, for me to answer in this.
Well,
one
again,
go, but-
from your perspective and from the research you do at your organization,
Well, I mean,
what do you guys
well,
see?
we're okay we're obviously a development bank. We're a wholesale bank, so we provide lines of credit and we help other organizations. We've heard a lot of nice ideas and stories today about the problems and some of the good things that are being done. One of the things that I was missing in the discussion, before I come to your question, is we talked a lot about the farmer side. We didn't talk maybe so much about the agro-industry as such. Perhaps we're going to hear more about that. But one thing that I really missed was the demand side and the marketing side. And I mean, at the end of the day, if you're going to brand your products or sell them, you really need to put a lot more effort into that. And I think that's not really coming out fully. And for you to do that, in my opinion, you need to firstly build your market here. You need to have Ugandans drink coffee, for example. If you want to sell your coffee abroad, Ugandans need to drink coffee. I mean, you need to develop the product here before you can develop it or send it out to the markets. Anyways, I don't want to get into that because I'm not an expert in it. Maybe I'm completely wrong, but my sense is that you need to do a lot more on the home front before you need to learn, so to speak. You need to learn your business, you need to learn the market before you can move abroad. But from our perspective, I mean, the points that Dmitry brought up this morning about low productivity in agriculture, I mean, I think that's really the main crux of the matter. And these good efforts and initiatives that are helping 1 million farmers, Abby, I think you said 1 million farmers. There were other examples of 500,000. But the fact is we're 10 million farmers in this country, and we're not reaching everybody. So we need to, I guess, do even more. We need more money to do more. And perhaps one of the things that did come out on the coffee side was, in terms of what government is putting into agriculture, we're far from what should be done in terms of the Maputo Accord, which says 10% of the budget, where we're down at 2-3%. So I think that's one thing that needs to be done. Another thing that needs to be done is, again, we're coming back to access to finance. We can't really avoid it. I think Abbey Trust has been doing a lot of good things, and I know your sister organization also in Tanzania, which is doing similar work. But again, it's the broad, how can we broaden this to a bigger group of people? Because at the end of the day, we need to try to reach everybody. So things like perhaps digitization came up. I think that's an important area. And perhaps things like credit scoring. I mean, to strengthen credit scoring of potential borrowers. I mean, many people today, they have their digital phones and their smartphones. There's a lot of information going in there. Google is capturing a lot of that big data. So you can actually hone some of that data in and start developing credit scores for people, which in itself will allow them to go to banks. I think this is an area that you're very fond of. So I've actually had some nice discussions recently. So coming back to sort of what the ADB is doing, I mean, we're an infrastructure bank, essentially. And we've actually just approved our country strategy for the next 5 years. And the main theme for us is infrastructure for industrialization. And we believe we need to do a lot more to industrialize the country. Agro-processing is, of course, a very important aspect, but as Dmitry was saying, productivity is low. So we need to find those areas like manufacturing, construction, what we call the industrial sectors. We need to move more people into some of those sectors. We need to move people into the higher value services areas. Because as long as you're reducing productivity as you're doing now, people are going to get poorer. At least the farmers are going to get poorer. So from our perspective, we're very much focused on trying to support the enablers of industrialization, and that means essentially roads, rail. Actually, rail I think, has a huge potential to reduce the cost. Another thing that was talked about, transport today. Transport on a truck costs about 17 to 19 cents per ton kilometer. On rail, you can bring that cost down to about 10, 11 cents per ton kilometer. So you can essentially have the cost of transport, and that's critical, especially when you want to bring your products all the way to Mombasa. But apart from that, so roads, water is very important for obviously agricultural production, energy, and so forth. So we're essentially focusing on the enablers, if you will, and we've actually done quite a lot in terms of connecting rural markets with or production areas with rural markets, some of the government programs. We've done marketplaces, in fact, and we've done irrigation. So on the big scale, that's what we're doing on the infrastructure side. And we've also been working with banks. As a wholesale bank, we don't really engage that much with the private sector in that sense, but we do it through local intermediaries. So we do lines of credit and otherwise. Uganda Development Bank is one of our partners as well. So that's the approach that we take as a development bank.
Thank you. Maybe the challenge is there, right? Because there's not a lot of room for the private sector to play at the level of infrastructure you play at, but the government is also only allocating to. Is there somebody from Ministry of Finance here? We have an extra seat. They can explain to us why the money doesn't get channeled where it should get channeled according to their code, right? But we have an entrepreneur here. Hassan, I want to jump to you. You have faced these challenges, but you've also been successful at some of the solutions. So 2 questions. It's a 2-part question. Number 1, if you can share some of your experience with what you've built thus far, but also how you've worked around some of the structural problems around accessing finance for your business.
No, thank you very much, Mark. I am Hassan Alwi. I am a director at Pearl Rice Uganda Limited. Pearl Rice is a local company here in Uganda, in eastern Uganda. And our model is slightly different. We work with outgrowers as well as have a nucleus farm. So Pearl Rice, we began in 2008, and we're currently going on. And of course, we have challenges here and there, but we are trying to address them as much as possible. And one of the big challenges, of course, is financing. That's always been a big challenge, since we don't have access to some of the finances like the ones on this table here. We usually have the commercial banks, which are very expensive and sometimes are very hard to get through with. So in terms of the agriculture part, I believe Uganda is the sort of heaven for agriculture. I have been around the whole country. I'm Ugandan by birth, and I really see huge potential in the agri sector here. So while we were managing the outgrowers, we faced a lot of challenges, because we train them, we give them seeds, we give them land, including land from our own farm, and we give them the full sort of value in regards to what they need to get the best product. That's certified seeds, quality, assurance, up to post-harvesting. We give them full support. But towards the end, it became very hard to manage this kind of system without a proper software and a proper sort of database management tool. And this brings me to our partner, where I am also a director, and that is called International University of East Africa. It's a university based in Kansanga, a few kilometers from here. And it's quite a large institution in terms of space, but its niche is technology. We focus on technology solutions for our problems in Africa. And we brought this problem to the university, and we told them, we have this, we want to work with outgrowers, because this is a very highly, you could say the poverty levels in this area where our farm was quite high, so it was important for us to do something to elevate the communities there. And the whole idea was, how do we manage the outgrowers to perform better, and how do we better equip them? And they came up with a technology around 2014. And this is it's called ISIS Farm, Uganda. We have a few ISIS farms now because we registered it in South Africa, and we brought it to Uganda. And we've secured, it's a USSD platform. We have secured *222# with UCC. And this platform basically does the full value chain of agriculture. It covers most of what has been discussed today here. It starts with registering the farmer and their land, whether it's titled or not, and it captures their data. It's basically live data management between our platform and theirs. It doesn't need a smartphone. It works in local languages, and it's going to solve every problem so far, because this is based on a research the university has been conducting for a very long time. We've done a lot of training using our programming students and our data mining students and staff to develop this, and we really focused on pearl rice as a model. And not only is it necessary for pearl rice, but I think it's necessary for the country and Africa at large. And this is something that I want to come to. In regards to solve some of the problems that we have been facing and we're going to continue facing, we really need to put a little bit of financing into the research and training component. I haven't heard too much about that in today's discussions, but I think to our success, investing in research and training has really helped us overcome a lot of the challenges we faced in our farms, and that's now allowing us to expand into other agricultural projects. The university, and in partnership with Pearl Rice, is now introducing Karamoja Rising, which is a 2,000-hectare agri-training center and commercial farm in Karamoja, in a very sort of unique and fertile area in Karamoja. And of course, they are going to focus on smart agricultural, smart farming. They're going to focus on organic farming, herbal medicine, which is something Uganda is taking serious, and I believe everyone should look into this. And of course, outgrower scheme, because we want to keep training the locals and at the same time equipping them with a platform, because they might not own the land. So you can give them land, give them support, seeds, teach them how to do it, so even when they move on, they are able to do it by themselves. I think this is something that can really uplift the communities. And of course, water and energy solutions are key for agriculture as well. You can't do processing without energy, and you can't do agriculture without water. So these are the kind of researches and focuses we're doing, and these are practical sort of situations that we're involved with. Right now, we are looking also in a large way at the export market, and the institution has decided to go and do a partnership with the Kingdom in Hoima, because the second international airport is being developed in Hoima, and Hoima is very fertile as well. And of course, this is all under our Bachelor's of Science in Agricultural Science. And our Department of Agriculture is slightly different to the traditional one. It's under Faculty of Science and Technology. So it's basically technology in agriculture. I believe this is the future, and it covers agri-processing, it covers the full value chain of agriculture, the value addition, and we believe we can actually start producing these machines for processing locally in Uganda, because we are using innovations, we're using research, and of course we're working a lot with international partners as well. We have established some good partnerships with other institutions that have interest in seeing growth in the same sector we're discussing today. So basically, I want to just touch a little bit more on ISIS Farm, and I want to maybe mention just a few things that it can help when it comes to funding. ISIS Farm is able to give you data on the farmers. It's able to give you a sort of clear picture of who is farming what, as per their geographic location, as per their age, as per their sex, whether male or female. So this, I believe, can give the financiers a lot more understanding as to what is on the ground, because usually what is on the ground is very different from what we are seeing up here. And of course, smallholder farmers, as you mentioned, Joseph, they do require a lot of support because they are the majority, and my brother Peter here mentioned 10 million, but I believe in Uganda we are a lot more than 10 million smallholder farmers. I would estimate over 20 million based on what is on ground. But their main challenge, of course, has been funding and training. Of course, we want them to produce, but they don't know how to produce. They don't have access to good seeds. They don't have access to tractors. You know, I believe maybe 3% of the farmers can actually access tractors. And a lot of them don't want to go into bush clearing and all that because it's manual labor, it's intensive, you know. And I believe we have a huge potential as a country to grow in education sector, but in the agriculture sector, but we really need to channel the funding in the right direction in order to see this. And a big portion of this is sensitization also of the communities. I have seen a lot of resistance when you're introducing, let's say, a new product or a new crop into an area where they only know about maize. When you bring in something that will add more value to them, and of course it improves on crop rotation, it improves on the soils. So once you bring this you get a bit of resistance, but I think they need to be sensitized and they need to understand that to get better produce, there is a lot they need to learn in order to achieve. Basically, I want to touch up on the project just to finalize with the project in Hoima. We are intending to develop an agro-industrial park where we want to use ESA's farm, because ESA's farm, it supplies the local market as well as the industrial market and the export market. And local, we're talking about rural and urban markets. We want to link the farmers to these platforms. And I believe this is a platform that can really do well based on the long time and energy that has been put by hundreds of people to develop this platform. I believe this is a solution that will help. And of course, through the Hoima Agro-Industrial Park, we are able to commercialize smart farming and spread it around the country. And of course, we should be able to export a lot of that food that meets the quality standards required. So thank you very much.
All right, thank you. I just have a follow-up question, which is also related to something Peter said. Do you feel, and it's an interesting point and you can expound on that, do you feel there's not enough support for people at your level? You know, there's a lot happening, there's a lot of talk with smallholder farmers, there's wealth creation, there's Emyoga, there's parish development, there's all these things for the smallholder farmers. Now, if we're talking of industrialization, now somebody who has got it to your scale, is there a grant program that provides technical support to help you set up this industrial park? Well, do you know what I mean? Do you feel that you have the level of support, or maybe there isn't enough players at your stage, which is why, and I'd like to get the opinion of all of you, after following on your comment, is that part of the problem? Do we have too much focus on the really smallholder, half an acre farmer versus the aggregator or the exporter or the, you know?
Well,
what has been your view? Are there grants you can access? Is there technical support you can get?
Well, I'm hoping they are, but it's really been a difficult journey in regards to financing. We've done a lot of this through the local commercial banks, and expensively, of course, some of these projects are long-term, as he mentioned. A lot of the banks here are looking at short-term, which make it very difficult for you to achieve your targets, because most of these projects are 10-year strategic plans. They have master plans which need time for planning, they need time for implementation, sensitization. So definitely the financing has not been friendly. It has been very difficult. I heard about patient funding, and I think this sounds more ideal in these kind of projects. And I do wish to encourage the financiers to try and investigate and learn more in terms of what is actually on the ground, because they can actually get better business opportunities with different strategies as well, because they have their way, and of course their way first you must have cash flows. So I don't know, most of these people, if they do have cash flows, why do they go back to the bank again? You know, you can grow yourself. So there are other techniques the bank can use as well to improve on their lending portfolios.
Yeah, I mean, I think actually one of the things that I'm also hearing a little bit today, and it's something I've been thinking about also in terms of other industries in the country, and that's to have, because it seems in many ways, a lot of good initiatives are being done, Trust and so forth, but what I'm sort of missing is a more holistic approach, that you have like an industry approach, that you approach agro-processing through the whole value chain, so that you have essentially a fund that allows different players at different levels in the value chain. If you're a farmer, then the fund can provide you with this. If you're a agro-processor, you need patient capital, you need the long-term capital financing for you to buy the machine that is going to be paid back over 15 years, because it's not gonna be profitable within 2 or 3 years. So I think perhaps that kind of an approach could be a way to go, and it of course requires a lot of coordination. But I must also say, from the African Development Bank, it also requires that you massage the people who are sitting higher up, because it's not an approach that we are that good at. I mean, we prefer the individual projects rather than this industrial approach.
Opinions, the two of you, before we take parting shots here in the interest of time?
Thank you very much. What I hear from this discussion is actually one thing that I had taken note of, is capacity building. You will realize that the farmers, the smallholder farmers, all the industrialists in the value chain as it grows, are in one side and another. The farmers might not know what is available for them. They don't know the financing products that are available for them. So probably they need capacity and be informed of what they need to do to access certain types of financing. The industrialists on the other side are also there, not aware of what is available for them. So again, maybe they need to be sensitized and be told of what is available and what is achievable and what is not achievable. Then the financial institutions, the providers of facilities, also need to be handheld to develop products that suit. Because there's no question of, there's no saying of one shoe fits all, because it doesn't. So products that suit, that are aimed at unblocking the pipe should be developed. But who is willing to take the cost of product development? Who is willing to take the cost of training of farmers to know what is available in the market? Some farmers don't know that there are agro inputs that are green friendly. You grow beans today that will take 6 months in the garden, while there are inputs that will actually yield in 3 months. They're not aware. So maybe sensitization and capacity building at that level needs to be done, and financiers need to be handheld to develop products that suit that, and industrialists need to be shown where to go to get what type of funding that they need. Now at ABI Finance, we have the Financial Services Development Product. It is a small fund. Again, we can't satisfy the entire market. But that fund is aimed at helping financial institutions develop products, teaching staff on how those products can be delivered to the demand, teaching SMEs, for example, industrialists, how to do business plans. Some of those industrialists have a good idea. They just wake up in the morning and start. They do not have a business plan. You ask them beyond 5 years, what do you expect? They can't answer that question. Now the fund is aimed at helping them develop business plan, do projections, understand where they want to be. If you understand where you want to be, then you will know which type of financing you will want. Because we find ourselves in a situation where a lot of those industrialists will go for the short-term financing for long-term projects. And along the way, they choke on the financing and they fail, they can't do their repayments, and then they are collapsing on their toes. So basically, capacity building is key, and it's not we can't point to African Development Bank, we can't point to Uganda Development Bank, we cannot point to ABI, but I mean, all of us need to come together, understand the problem, including the regulators, because in that industry, Bank of Uganda is there, I know they have a facility, SEF. They understand the challenges that they have gotten implementing that. They are fully aware, so I am sure they will be happy to join the party. The Bankers Association on the other side is there to try and help level the ground for every player to have equity and in the same industry. And the players like us coming together to work on a capacity building is a thing that actually creates a universe, a future for all of us. Thank you.
Thank you. Any comments from your side?
Yeah, thank you so much. I agree with colleagues that agro-industrialization by nature sits on both sides of the field. It belongs to agriculture, but it also belongs to industry. And of course, there are many other aspects in there that need to be taken into account, and Peter has mentioned marketing. It immediately reminded me, of course, you all know the Boo-Boo motto, but I've seen, I believe this morning or probably the other day, I've seen a variation on this. So it should actually read Boo Boo Boo, which means that before you buy Ugandan to build Uganda, you need to brand Uganda. So it's not just Boo Boo, it's Boo Boo Boo. So it's becoming even more complex. But thinking about that complexity, I would, and I mentioned in the beginning, that focus is essential. So in that sense, I agree with Peter that we probably need a dedicated facility that would address the challenge of agro-industrialization. If the government of Uganda seriously believes that this is one of the priorities, that this needs to be addressed, then it also needs to be treated seriously. The facilities like the ACF, for example, they are good. But ACF works, as you know, with participating banks. So it's ultimately up to those participating banks to decide whether they want and to what extent they want to support various projects in agro-industrialization and what are exactly the products that they're supporting with. So setting up a dedicated facility is one thing to ensure the focus, and second, a lot has been said about capacity building. I agree, but we also need to build the capacity of financiers to understand agro-industrialization projects. Because as I said in the beginning, they treat these projects the same way as other projects, and they don't really understand, in many cases, they don't understand what really makes agro-industrial projects acceptable from the perspective of risk. And you know, I'm sometimes amazed by Ugandans. Every Ugandan has a family in the village. Almost every Ugandan is involved in agriculture on the side. I'm not sure if you are doing any agriculture on the side. So the credit officers sitting there in the bank, in principle, understand what makes a good project and what makes a bad project. But when they put on their head as credit officers, not as common Ugandans, but as credit officers, then they immediately qualify that project as non-bankable because of all the shortcomings that we have discussed. So working with the financiers, ensuring more patient capital. The reason behind the quick capital that is used at the moment is that they simply don't feel comfortable with crediting such projects for longer periods of time because they're not sure about how the debt will be serviced. So once that confidence is created in financiers through better capacity development, we can expect that the situation will improve. But this requires an effort on the part of all of us.
And an effort from the side of government. I mean, they need to
Including
really
the government.
put
Yes.
a lot more money into this sector, I think, if they really want to pick it up. I mean, they need to be part investors, I think, in some I mean, as a sleeping partner, but putting in some risk capital, and that's what a government can do.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Marcus, do we have time for a few questions before I close the panel? I'm just looking at the time.
Yes, we do actually. We have about 6 minutes. We can do Q&A. I'll pass the microphone round. I think let's ask the question. If the question is addressed to you, write it down your answer so that we finish the question, then answer at once. And as you're asking the question, please, your name and where you're from. Thank you.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Matthew Lorika. My name is Matthew Lorika Naburi. I'm a farmer in Karamoja. And the journey has been involving no financing at all from any banks. We face a lot of challenges, and we have to stand up to a wide variety of structural imbalances, which include donor money, which is the most dangerous thing to development, I would say, at this stage. Why would I say that? Agriculture is supposed to be rewarding, and you can get your money back as a farmer. You can face the climate risks. It can be irrigated. You can face pests. You can apply pests to it and everything. But you cannot change the markets for your product. You have to get into a market and compete on the example of rice. Mr. Alwi and I know the rice story, that when we try to grow rice, the government puts a tax waiver on imported rice from Pakistan. And so Pakistan gets cheap money from the Islamic Bank. They grow cheap rice. They send us 3-year-old rice under that scheme. And on the market, I'm producing fresh rice, and they're selling dumped rice. That's the structural imbalance that we have to deal with. So all the risks I put in as a farmer in Uganda are taken up by a Pakistani grower. So the cost of money, interest, inflation costs, eroding of value with inflation, the source of the money, is it government money? Governments in other countries subsidize their farmers through schemes somehow. Banks can be set up as agricultural banks. And then, as I said, the donors, they come and they give the free seed. They come and purportedly train farmers to work in groups, set up village associations that don't function, ultimately. And then where do they apply the money? We've always found a model where USAID discloses huge sums of money. World Food Program discloses large payouts for buying agricultural commodities. And at the end of the day, I do not see a connection between farming activities and all this capital that's coming through that way. So sector development is not taking root because of these distortions. I'll give you an example. The biggest dairy farm in Africa today sits in Khartoum. It uses the waters from the Nile to irrigate and grow up to about 150,000 acres, fenans of pasture. Yeah? It's the biggest dairy farm in the world now. Ethiopia has moved to grow 320,000 acres of wheat in this time of war. Yeah? That is what they're doing. They're developing sectors that are crucial to their food systems within their countries. What is our food system in Uganda? Are we coffee consumers that we put so much behind the coffee? Or are we matoke consumers that we can put so much behind the matoke? Or are we maize consumers? The maize production in this country, January we're trading maize at 750 shillings. Today we're trading it at 1,350 shillings. What is the buffer in there? And what's the benefit to the farmer in this case, with all that price range? Yeah, there are all these programs, import substitution, oil palm projects that are coming up. And yeah, they are nice because Malaysia has decided to cut off all crude oil exports, palm oil exports. And so we'll have to look at how we can be competitive in that area in a certain time. But can we have alternatives to add value to our maize in Uganda? Yes, we can. It's a clear example with Mandela Millers. He buys the maize, mills the flour, but he exports all the maize bran and wheat pollard as feed, and is increasing his capacity in that area. Fertilizer production. We don't have much of a fertilizer production facility in this country, so that sector is totally ignored in one way or the other. And then I like what Mr. Albi has talked about, the technology being not a predominant area of narrow. There are very many innovations that can come from the artisanal industry. They make excellent milling machines for value addition to grain, cleaning machines for the same, but we're still stuck with this thing of it has to be imported from Turkey, from China, and that now stifles a lot of the innovation that could come here. If that area could be funded or channeled into university funding, that's one of the areas that we think can change a lot of things. I would like to conclude with talking about enterprise structuring, because I've been in that area quite a lot. We have peasant holders who don't have any holding of land, and a very big majority of poor quality grain producers in the country. They cannot harvest, they do not have enough space to dry it, and they cannot move the commodity to the market easily. So that's one of the enterprise structuring areas that I think would be very, very nice for finances to look at. Because at the beginning of the aflatoxin chain is the harvest. And yeah, you've got the soils and everything, but it starts to deteriorate immediately. So if we can look at the Vietnam model, the Cambodia model, where that predominantly is an entry point to markets, then you can probably have a big acceleration in growth of your enterprise structuring. So with that, thank you so much. It's been nice being around.
Thank you, Matthew. There are two hands of, okay, there's one there, then one there, and then two over here.
I go by the names Godfrey from International University of East Africa. My interest is on the side of finance. You know, we've talked finance, but what I didn't pick is what is the appetite like? How long, because we've been talking about patient capital. So from FBI and the gentleman from Mr. Dmitry, we want to know, if you're to lend to us, what tenors are we looking at? Then what are the single borrower limits for each of the individual who is interested in the picking? Because if we are talking some of the projects that we have at the university, some of those projects will require close to $2 million, $3 million. But we've touched base with commercial banks. What they are giving us is something that will simply pull us down. So we wanted to know what limits you have and then how we can access them.
Thank you.
Yeah, my name is Robert. I have an interest in finance as well. I have two very quick questions. One goes to the presenter from the discussant from Pearl Rice. You talk about your software system. When it comes to issues of data protection, what are you doing for the smallholder farmers? Because that's extremely important, and who owns that data? Secondly, there are a number of different applications now being developed and delivered. So what makes yours more unique than many of those? Then to the presenter from the World Bank, Peter, from the African Development Bank, Peter, there are different perspectives about the contribution of agriculture, the contribution to agriculture. Some may say that the sector allocations that go to energy, that go to roads, that go to bridges, also contribute to agriculture, even education and health. So what do you have to say about that?
Thank you, Robert. Two very clear questions to Peter and Hassan. There are two gentlemen over here. I think we'll get the answers after those two.
All right, thank you to everyone. Good afternoon. Mine will be brief. It's more of a comment to just hear what your thoughts are, and it really speaks
introduction,
to...
please.
Sorry?
Introduction.
Oh, sorry. My name is Arnold Biargaba. I work with the MasterCard Foundation here in Uganda. Mine is really around the point that was touched on earlier. You know, we have talked about incentives for investment and the competitive advantage, where you have a lot of products being imported that, you know, we cannot compete with. We're also fully aware that in the current Uganda Investment Authority plan, there's, I think, there's a plan for up to 25 industrial parks. And I really want to not look very far from home, but look at what, say, the job, because when you're talking about job creation, Joseph, I know your ABI has done a lot of work over the last few years, but you know, the argument usually is around, if we don't go commercial agriculture, will we see the results we're trying to see in terms of job creation? So I think the question really is for us within the room, the role we play both as financial institutions. You know, the things you're talking about, blended finance. Blended finance can only be in an environment where there's a structure, where it's organized. So I really see a key role that industrial parks play in addressing a lot of the pain points. The big question is, these require significant investments. So what's the role government plays? What's the role development partners will play to further de-risk some of these investments, so that we start to speak to some of these objectives we're looking out for. So thank you.
Thanks, Arnold.
Thank you, speakers. My name is Kenneth Munyaneza. I'm from Southgate Industries. We are in manufacturing and trade. My question goes to Dmitry and Joseph. It's on, could you give us some information on trade financing options that you have, and also what kind of security options that you require that are favorable to people in that industry, considering the volatility that we face. The second question is to the gentleman from Pearl Rice. I wanted to find out more on how you manage the quality risk with your outgrowers on your software.
Thank you very much, Kenneth. So as you get ready with those answers, I thought I would add to Arnold's point. I don't know if you listened to His Excellency's speech, I think it was Tuesday or Monday, and he gave some numbers about how agriculture can single-handedly solve our economic challenges in this country. And he gave some numbers. He says, and I don't know if they're true, but he's the president, so they must be. 9 million families we have in this country. And he said if 50% of them took agriculture seriously, and not seriously to the point where you employ 20, 25 people, he said, let's just, on average, put 10 people on a farm that's taking their agriculture seriously. His argument was, of the 9 million families, at least 5 million of them have land. So if those 5 million families took that land and did something serious with it, we would automatically create 50 million jobs from that simple mathematics. I don't know if that was to your point, and your argument to them was, how do we use agriculture to close the gap of unemployment in this country? I don't know who that question will be for, but I thought I would add some water to it. So, who wants to go first answering which question? Gentlemen.
So anybody who wants to take their question, I don't know who has the most questions. Maybe we start there.
There were some that were very directed.
Yes.
There are others that were very generic, so speak freely.
Okay. Hassan?
Thank you very much. I think my first question was the data protection, and I want to make this clear that the data belongs to the farmer, so they must consent if they want their data shared. So if they are looking for financing, they can consent to share it with some interested financiers who are looking to finance smallholder farmers, then they will be able to access the data. So the data belongs to them. That will be respected in all times. And then you asked about there are other platforms that are in the market at the moment, and what is unique about ESA's Farm. And I think it's clear that ESA's Farm is a USSD platform. Most of the ones available are applications, and there is one USSD that is trying to come along, but it's still relatively new. It has not gone so deep in research and innovations like ESA's has. So what the summary would be, ESA's is what they all have plus a lot more. So it's very advanced compared to what is in the market at the moment. And I'll also answer the question about pearl rice in regards to how do you mitigate the risk. And yes, there's always a lot of risk on the ground, and we do have a performance management sort of appraisal done every season. And if someone is underperforming, what we tend to do is we shift it from them to a family member. So we keep the farm within the family, but we try to see that we point out where they're going wrong, whether it's theft, whether it's mismanagement. So we try to identify the problem and of course solve it for them there and then. Thank you.
Peter?
Yeah, I think the first question, I mean, the simple answer is, again, it comes back to government support, all of those things that you mentioned. Just for an example, or by example, I was looking at some of the numbers yesterday when I was preparing a little bit for this. A country like Spain, and remember all EU countries, they obviously, and many other countries, Pakistan and so forth was mentioned, receive subsidies or receive government support. In Spain alone, they receive $300, each farmer, $300 per hectare of land they have. And this is just in hand, just for you to have. Then there's all the other support mechanisms that come on top, like extension work and so forth. And I think that's really key. I mean, if we're going to do more for agriculture, government needs to put more money in. We need to expand extension work. I think that's one of the key areas. And then all of the other problems we've discussed, there's a multitude of them, and it's a question of prioritizing. There was another question about contribution. I wasn't really sure what the question was, but I mean, I guess, yeah, you could say that if you do a road, we're not just benefiting agriculture, we're benefiting various things. I mean, anybody who moves on that road benefits from it. And so essentially transport or infrastructure is seen as an enabler for all sorts of industries and also agriculture. But we do actually do specific things with government. For example, the KIPE program, I can't remember what the acronym stands for, but it's essentially road building in rural areas, linking rural markets with rural production areas with markets. So there's a number of specific things that we're doing as well. So yeah, thanks.
Dmitry?
Well, there were questions about the START facility, which I mentioned in the beginning. The unique feature of the START facility is that this is a tripartite partnership between the Private Sector Foundation of Uganda, Uganda Development Bank, and UNCDF. I'm mentioning this because you can find detailed information about that facility on the websites of all three partners. The facility at the moment is being recapitalized. It operates through calls for proposals. We hope that we will be able to issue the next call for proposals later this year. The facility is for, as I said, small and medium enterprises in agricultural value addition, for registered companies, not for individuals. It operates with a number of financial instruments, primarily with concessional loans and various types of guarantees.
Thank you. Question for yourself?
Yeah, thank you very
Yes.
much, Chair. Yeah, there was a question about tenors. I don't know if it was for Dmitry, but in terms of tenors for ABI, we finance financial institutions for on lending, and currently our longest has been 5 years. 5 years. However, with the new developments in the financing world, we're looking at long-term financing. New development meaning smart agriculture, green smart agriculture, facilities that we have set aside to do through financial institutions will go up to, we're planning, and we know we have approvals, will go up to at least 10 years. Single borrower limits, because we finance financial institutions, now for the individual will depend on your project and its projection. Is when you can hit as much as you can from the appraisals the financial institutions will do. How to access? Basically, you go through financial institutions and then you access those funds. In terms of trade finance options, I don't know if that also came to ABI Finance. What I can say is the product we have for that is the portable guarantee, which means that you get appraised by a financial institution to match the portable guarantee. The portable guarantee means that the financial institution, after appraising you, will send you to ABI for approval. And the approval will be that ABI Finance will write a portable guarantee. This portable guarantee is basically, we will guarantee you up to 50% if you can't make good of your facility. We'll give you that guarantee, and you shop around for any financial institution that can give you the facility you want to access. That one, I think, is a product that can work hand in hand with trade financing options that are available, but it's not cash, but it's a guarantee cover that you get from ABI. I hope I have answered that. Maybe what I can say is that we have all locked within the banking options. There are many other options that are non-bank that actually ABI has intentionally decided to push through in beginning with the next year. And those ones include private equity, mezzanine financing, and subordinated debt. The intention here is to put money with the especially fund managers to actually extend to especially industrialists equity options. Most industrialists or most entrepreneurs look at their businesses as their babies. They don't want to give up anything completely. And yes, we understand it is a pain, but if you are looking at long-term financing and financing solutions, the bank might not ultimately be the heaven. Partners that come and bring capital, equity into you for a period of 10, 15, 20 years can be very good options. Yes, they can come with a lot of professionalism that they'll put onto you, oversight and management decision influences. But yes, by the time they exit from your investment, they have left you better and in a place to run on your own. Yes, there are challenges there. In Uganda, we know exit strategies can be challenges for those private equity funds, but a pre-arranged agreement with them can solve or smoothen the exit strategies. And I know ABI is putting money aside to support private equity investments, subordinated debt, and mezzanine financing going forward. That will take us away a bit from relying on the commercial banks or banking for solutions that are long-term. Again, the intention here is to create patient capital solutions for agro-industrialization. I know also there's an agenda of green financing coming up seriously on the agendas of so many, especially development partners. And here, ABI has intentionally created green finance funds, which will be available very soon. And these are actually going to be done the same way we do our usual lines of credits, but these are going to be intentionally green. Our guarantees are going to be intentionally green guarantees. Why? Because and again, these are going to be blended with financial services development and BDS. Why? Because financial institutions don't want to take on the burden of product development and research for the new products that are looking to greening. Therefore, ABI is saying, we will do the business development services for you. We will support product development. We will educate your staff to deliver these financial services. And then we will create the facility, which is a line of credit that is intentionally long-term to basically go for these projects, green projects. And where the financial institutions still think there's a bit of risk, we will guarantee up to about 70-30%. Those are outlooks that ABI is looking out to, and in the near term, this year, next year.
Thank you.
I hope that helps.
Any comments yet?
Yeah, I just wanted to add that a development of the institutional financing infrastructure is, of course, an important task. Equity has been mentioned here. We have been working with the Ministry of Finance on Uganda capital markets deepening so that we can expand the opportunities for both equity and debt finance. Of course, this is relevant for larger and more mature businesses, we know it, but in principle, the task of improving liquidity and trading of the stock exchange and upgrading the regulation that would allow companies to better access capital markets is also one of the contributions to improving agro-industrialization financing.
Thank you.
Yep, I think that's it.
Yes, so thank you again. I intended to get commitments, but I think we picked them up from the discussion. So back to you, Marcus. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark, and your entire team. Just two last comments from our online audience. I don't think none of these is a question, it's just a comment really. From Martin Fowler, he says it is not the proportion of the public sector funding or the actual amount of funds allocated to the agricultural sector that matters. And he says, according to the Maputo declarations, 10%. The key is how that money is spent, its effectiveness. And also from Timothy Alinda, government and policymakers very much need to be part of these discussions, and they need to be held accountable. Technocrats absolutely have the knowledge and will to grow these sectors. Stella Okot, we really missed government and policymakers' involvement in these discussions. What happens to all the recommendations? Luckily for you, Stella, we do have government here present, and they will answer these questions. So thanks a lot, gentlemen. Please join me on stage for a quick photo op. Dmitry did give us something to think about. He says we should not stop at boo-boo, but we should move it to boo-boo-boo. Buy Uganda, build Uganda, brand Uganda. Thanks a lot.